Hey, what's up, YouTube? So, we went, like, what, by the end of Swiss, we were, X1 after 7 rounds. We only lost 1 round. And we made it into top 8, but then we died in top 8. So, I wanted to go over the decks that we used for, BSF Duluth. I am going to go over our matchups, like, super quickly, because I did make 2 posts about it. Round 1, we fight against Jheva, Mahar, Thegrea. We swept them. Round 2, we fight Jet, Youthberk. I was the only one to lose, so we won that round as well. Round 3, we fight Clarissa, Gravidia, Thegrea. We sweep them again. Round 4, Jet, Maelstrom, Eva. We 3-0 sweep them. Round 5, Minerva, Lyrical, and Jet. We 3-0 sweep them. Round 6, I was the only one that won. I won the Eva matchup. And then my 2 teammates lost to Jet and Youthberk. So that was the round that we lost, round 6. And then round 7, we won against Pale Moon, Eva, and Jet. We 3-0 sweep them again. So all our wins except 1 win was that all our team members won. And then we got into top 8. We fought against DOTE, Eva, and Jet. I won against my DOTE opponent, and both my teammates lost to Jet and Eva. So that's our tournament report for our BSF Duluth. We did go really far. This was my first personal top 8 at a BUSHIROAD event. Also my friend's too. This was his first personal top 8 in a BUSHIROAD event. So you know it was a really emotional moment for all of us, even though we didn't make it past top 8. But yeah, let's get into my deck profile. I'm going to profile my deck first. I am CA. CA was Youthberk. Seat B was Eva. And then Seat C was Tamayura. And these are all very interesting lists, at least in my opinion. So let's get into it. This is the Youth ride line. There's really not much to talk about here. It's the most consistent it's the most consistent ride line that you can play in Youthberk. So there's really nothing much else to talk about. Going on to the grade 3s, which is basically like the bread and butter of this whole deck. Playing 4, let's see here, looks sexy right there. Playing 4 Tempest, 3 Gusts, and then 3 Persona Rides. You're maxing out on Persona Ride because this deck actually ideally does want a Persona Ride every turn if you are able. I actually cut the Gusts down to 3 to just try and min-max my tech options for this event. It was a little bit dicey at 3, but I just consigned myself to the fact that I'm just going to be gusting my opponent like once, maybe twice per game. But going on to the grade 2s, this was like a very clutch 2 in my opinion, just because there's so many decks that do have board removal, and Youth is weak to board removal, so I just kind of focused my deck around having like a minimalist, being able to survive off a minimalist board, or being able to build a board after my opponent quote-unquote breaks my board. So 3 Cadbrays, and you can get the Blitz Order PG off of this, which is really good in the Jet matchup. And then my 1 of tech was 1 Arthen, which if you guys don't know what this card does, I don't blame you. It came out in set 5. Its effect is, if you Persona Road, he gets 5k until the end of turn when he attacks. And then his continuous effect is front row rear guard circle. As long as this unit's in the front row rear guard, your opponent cannot target other units that don't have the same card name as him for card effects. So this was actually like a pseudo really good tech for Jet, a pseudo really good tech for like other matchups that had spot removal because they could only target him. So, but I really only played him for the 5k power because I really don't like Schneisel, just because his search isn't guaranteed. Cadbray, you're always guaranteed to get something, and that's the reason why I personally don't like Schneisel anymore and cut it from my deck. While this is like, it's like you get the 5k from Schneisel, but it's quote-unquote free. All you have to do is Persona Ride, which doesn't cost you any resources. Onto our grade 1s, playing 4 copies of Wayward Angel. Not much to talk about here. It's your prime discard fodder for your Skyfall, prime discard fodder for your Gust, prime discard fodder when you grade up to grade 3. 4 copies of Sequana, Not much to talk about here. This is, you really do want to have a Sequana on board every turn to give your Vanguard, give your Revolt form the extra drive check. Ideally, you want to put it behind the Vanguard, but there was games where I did open up with multiple Sequanas, so I did try to, because it is best of one format, I did try to early aggress my opponent with it, and it worked out pretty decently. But the MVP, honestly, the MVP of today, it didn't come up in like my first few rounds, but like then it just started coming up in every game. Was shit, what is this card's name? 4 copies of Night of Desolation, Fod Luna. Yeah, right there is good. So this is a grade 1 from set 4. Its effect is, if there's no cards in the same column as this unit, meaning your opponent's column has to be empty and your column has to be empty besides this card, it's an 18k attacker by itself. So that means when you Revolt form into your Tempest, this is 23 by itself, which is very powerful if you're going first. And it's also very powerful going second, just being able to, more often than not, most decks can't get rid of my rear guards before riding grade 3. So I found myself more often than not calling a Sequana behind my grade 1 Vanguard. If you don't know, the grade 1 Youth gets 2k power when it attacks. So I make an 18k column with my Vanguard, and I have a 1 card 18k column with this card. There was only one round, which was the last round in top 8, where I was able to establish 2 of these on turn 2. And I just swung my opponent with, like, while they were at 8k, 10, 18, 18. So this was the MVP of today. And honestly, it's a very, believe it or not, it's a very useful card in the Eva matchup, because like a third of their shield is their intercepts. And sometimes you could just, if they have 1 card in the same column as this unit, you could tuck away their quote-unquote interceptor, or you can tuck away their back row unit and then turn on its 10k. So it really did come up super clutch in situations like that, or in other situations where I'm forcing my opponent to commit cards to a column they necessarily wouldn't have committed otherwise. Going on to the PGs, 3 DPGs, nothing much to talk about here. 1 Blitz Order PG, it's like very standard in Jet format, you have to play this, basically because of Chrono Jet. Let me just put the triggers right here. 1 Keter OT, the Keter OT is really good in this deck just because you go through your deck so much that when you check the Keter OT, your chances of hitting triggers are just so much greater than your average Keter deck that this is actually quite beneficial, even though you more often than not don't have grade 3 rear guards. I didn't check it offensively all day today, but I did check it defensively a couple times and just like hard draw into it. 3 front triggers, don't want to play draws in this deck just because you go through the deck so much. Not much to talk about there. 4 heals. I like the normal heals over any of the effect heals. I don't feel like the effect heals are good enough in this format, which is predominantly Jet focused. So I would just rather have like the 15k heal no matter what. And 8 vanilla crit. You don't really need the into soul crits in this deck. Like, you would rather have the 5k, you'd rather have just like the 5k triggers to make better numbers if you do have to call triggers, which sometimes does happen. If you have a Cadbray and you get 3 triggers off of Cadbray, you have to call something. But my overall personal record was X1. I only lost to the Jet player, which did result 4 heals on me, which was a little bit sketchy, but I don't know if they were cheating or not. But that's it for my deck profile, guys. I'm going to hand it off to my buddy David over here, and he's going to be profiling his Eva list. He was seat B. Go ahead, Dave. What?
Are you going to pause it?
No. This is all going to be one take.
So, I'm the CB player. My name's David. I played Eva today. She's the waifu right now. They're very hard. I feel like my list is pretty standard as it comes for Eva lists.
This is the rarity horror of our team.
Start off with your standard 3 Persona rides. Need it. Honestly, felt like one of the games I lost was a lack of Persona ride. Can't say much about it. Your standard ordered lineup. 4 of the grade 3, 4 of the promo order. The grade 2 order, not used much anymore.
It's bad.
It's bad.
You used it early because you had to.
We had no choice. But now that we have the choice, we don't need it.
You have no reason to run bad cards. It's a bad card.
Then for the rest of my grade 3s, just the grade 3 Obscurade. What can I say? 10k on attack, 10k shield, and crit when Superior Road.
Superior Call.
Superior Call, you're right. Grade 2 Obscurade. This card.
Always saw this off the grade 3
This
order.
card with the grade 3 order came up so much.
Every round.
Oh my god, he was the MVP in so many of my matchups. It was great. And then the 3 combined rushers. Some people would argue 2. I like 3 today. It came up when I needed it because
he was playing 2. He bumped it up.
I was 2. I bumped it up to 3. I'm gonna show you the card I cut from 3 to 2.
The only reason he bumped it up to 3 is because it's getting banned.
He will be missed.
It's choice restricted.
It's getting
he will be missed.
It's getting choice restricted.
The card that I swapped around the ratios that used to be 2 and 3 was the wavy loss over the combined rusher. But I felt like trying to see the combined rusher for the early discard and early rush was too important to just have the extra draw.
Especially in the mirror.
Especially in the mirror.
I think it won me the mirror, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Favorite card of my day besides Obscurate Grade 2, Bulbamine. He
Always
saved.
saw this card too.
He saved my
Always saw
butt
it.
when they tried to damage deny me. What can I say? Check top 5, grab a Bulbamine, GG. Standard
Don't be a Yu-Gi-Oh player, bro. Fuck
Standard
you.
PG lineup. Grade 1 PG and 1 Blitz. Only really save this card for the Jet matchups. If you don't need it, get rid of it early. It's going to hurt you in the late game.
Also, the only card in his deck that's not foil.
Yep.
Big sad.
That's the only card in this deck that's not foil.
Then we got Brandgate OT, best OT. 3 fronts. 8 crits.
Why not draws?
Buddy draws. Deck out.
The reason he's playing the effect crit is because it comes in SP.
And 4 heals. Same reason I don't run the effect heals. It's not good in this format.
They're just not good. They're not good, period. Unless like a deck that like either restands something or like gives a crit something becomes the dominant tier 1 deck that everyone's playing it, sure, maybe. But like it's just too diverse of a format right now.
Yep. My personal record was
X2.
X2.
X1 before top 8 playoffs.
Yeah, my only losses
was X1 before top 8 playoffs.
My only losses were Jet. What can I say? I don't like the crest. Worst match I had, they did 4 Fate Riders, flipped all the next stages, plus 35k to the front row.
Yeah.
Couldn't do anything about
sadly,
it.
that team actually ended up getting DQ'd from the tournament because that same Jet player, he didn't put his stride deck in his deck log.
Which is pretty unfortunate.
It is very unfortunate, and I really felt bad for the team because I knew those guys. Like I knew the prison player, I knew the Jet player, and it was very unfortunate. But it was their fault. It was at the end of the day, it was their fault, whether they like it or not. And you know, it's like they got unfortunately DQ'd for their life savings.
Yeah. And well, that's it for my deck profile. I'm gonna pack it up and pass it over to the dark horse of our team.
Yeah.
Playing the Tamayura
so he
list.
got carried the entire day. He didn't win a single game.
Damn.
That is not true.
I told him we swept. We swept every round except 1 round. We swept. We swept.
You lost 1 game, bro.
I lost 1 game. We swept every other thing that we won except that 1 game.
Hi guys, Nick here.
Yeah. Oh, and again, sorry about the shakiness and the lighting. We're in our hotel room. Like, this is probably going to get posted up the same night.
So we're going to start off with the beautiful ride line for Tamayura. The 0, the 1, and the 2, and the 3.
quickly explain what the ride line does for those who might not know?
So for those who don't know,
For the Frankies.
yikes. The grade 1, when it's written upon, it lets you and it allows you to search. It allows you to search top 7 for any Ririmi or Rarami or an order that states
Fox art.
Fox art, which in the current meta there's only 2 Fox arts, one being really good, the other one being kind of niche.
Not good in this man.
Not good enough. The grade 2 allows you to add a Ririmi or Rarami from your drop, so basically a free free ride. And then the grade 3 lets you CB1. Well, the first effect is at the beginning of your main phase, if you grade 3, you the player gets a continuous 5k for your front row until the end of the turn, and then on attack you can CB1 and either do one of 2 abilities, either superior call 1 card from your soul, or if you are going to superior call a Ririmi or a Rarami, you may call them both at the same time. I'm going to start off with the Persona ride. This deck needs to see its Persona rides. Like, it is the heaviest and strongest combo piece. I know some decks would run the Regalia piece, but unfortunately, because of this deck,
we thoroughly tested it. It's a brick.
It's a really big brick because you have other orders that you'd rather just play. We're playing the new and very controversial
Controversial for us just because like we play it at 4, it's garbage. We take it out the deck's good. We play it at 3, the deck's better.
Like, I felt after extreme playtesting, I was like, I really don't want to play this card just because
very extreme. 9 hour plus of playtesting.
But it's still helpful. If you didn't know, what this card does is when you play it, you have to have a Vanguard with Tamayura in this card.
It's a grade 1 order, by the way. It's free.
It's a grade 1 order. It has no cost. It just has to have a Vanguard with Tamayura in the name. On activation, you look at the top 7 cards, and you add 1 Ririmi or Rarami from either the top 7 or the drop. You can choose from both, and then if you have 1 of each in your soul, you draw a card. So basically, it recycles. It cycles 2 cards out of your deck, or it cycles 3 cards out of your deck. However you want to see it. But it's a really good card. It accomplishes something that the deck has an issue with, which is having all the pieces in your soul, because you need to have all the dolls in your soul, and there's there's 4 different ones, 2 grade 2s, 2 grade 1s. This, in my opinion, is the MVP of the deck. This produces.
It's the best order in the deck.
It is.
Believe it or not, it's better than Broken Toys.
Like, this card simply states that you can Soul Blast 2 and Superior Call 1 of each doll with different names from the drop. So basically, if you have in your hand 2 of the grade 2s, you can now pull out 2 of the grade 1s, and now you have 2 different columns that are going to go back into your soul and get refunded for 3 CB. But this card just wins games. Like, especially when you Persona ride, you have 33k columns, so you swing for 33, then 38, then 36 if you have a booster behind your Vanguard. 33 again when you attack with the Vanguard, because you're going to CB3 to Superior Call 2 new columns, and you just make such a big number, such a big hindrance. Like against today, I went against 2 different Eva players and 2 different Chrono Jet players, and I was able to defeat all of them because of this one combo. And it's not a very hard combo to get to, plus the simple fact that they can't guard all your attacks when you Persona ride. We're going to start off with the Rarami, the grade 2 version. So what she does is, on place, the first effect is if this card is retired from Guardian Circle, you can put it into your soul. This is going to be shared for both the grade 2 versions. So the Ririmi version has the same ability, but the secondary ability states when this unit is placed, if you have a unit with Ririmi in its card's name, you can Soul Blast 2 cards from your soul to draw 1 card. I'm only playing 3 of it because as I play tested, 3 was just a magic number, 4 was too cloggy, or 4 was too much. I just didn't feel like 4 was beneficial to me because I just rather play other cards.
This deck is very much tailored to the player. Yes. And that's like that's more often than not the cases with rogue decks like this, because this is not a tier 1 deck.
No, not in the slightest.
This is not a tier 1 deck.
This is very rogue.
This is a deck that can do well in this metagame because of how fast paced it is.
So actually, the other reason why this deck is very good is because it rushes. But we'll get there when we get to the grade 1s. Right now, Ririmi says it has the same ability as the Rarami, where if this card is retired, you get to put it into your soul. And then it has the other ability, which says when this card is called and you have a Rarami in your rearguard circle, you can Soul Blast 2 and choose a unit and push it into your soul from your opponent's board. So basically, really good against Obscuide. Yeah, sure, you're going to give Eva the extra soul, but you're now not dealing with that extra free 10k intercept that they had. And this card came up way more than you guys might think, especially against a Chrono Jet matchup. If they called Swirlers, I would simply just put their Swirlers into their soul so they couldn't recycle them anymore. Yes, it does let them allow to draw Activate G's ability a lot better, but I'd rather get rid of the unit that simply will be a 13k B stick for free, or 18 depending on how many Swirlers they have.
Really good for clearing interceptors in general, like the fact decks that can clear interceptors like Eva, like Tamayura, it's like sometimes it's very game winning, or it just you get rid of more shield from your opponent's hand than they would normally want to. It's getting rid of interceptors is really good in this format, is my point.
So off to the other grade 1s for the dolls. We have the grade 1 version of Rarami. So these units have a very special uniqueness to them. The grade 1s, I will just put the other one, which is the Ririmi, to specify what these do. The Rarami and the Ririmi share the same ability, in which at the end of the battle that they boost, they have to go into soul with whatever they boosted. So basically, they will be soul charged for basically no cost. This is very helpful because they have additional abilities depending if they put the opposites into soul. So Rarami states that if she goes into soul with Ririmi by her ability, you can give a unit 5k, which is phenomenal because you can get the Vanguard an extra 5k, or you can get the opposite column, which would normally have Ririmi and Rarami, the grade 2 and the grade 1, an additional 5k. That column, if it's not Persona Ride, is 18 on your first grade 3 ride. 23 when you do your Vanguard swing, and it could be because of the 5k, or you can be on Persona Ride. This column would be 33. You can make it 38, and then if you hit triggers, you can make it 48, which are beautiful and magical numbers that most people would hate to go against.
Really good rushing with it early game.
Oh yeah,
really good rushing.
And like especially because they're grade 1s, if I go second, I don't mind putting them in the early game, because if I play them and you kill them, I will typically just get it back with the grade 2's ability, which is what a lot of people did today. They tried to damage deny me, and they were like, okay, I'm gonna attack the doll, and I'll be like, that's fine. They attacked the doll, and I would either broken toys the doll that they forced me to, well, not forced me, that they attacked into, and I would get a free draw off of it, or I would discard a card and get the card back into my hand for free.
Yeah, he has multiple ways of getting the dolls back from the drop zone.
In my opinion, this next card though
is better than Broken.
It's way better. No. We're not done with the.
Oh, okay.
This is the best card they could have added to the deck, to Tamayura. This Ririmi grade 1, it is just the best utility this deck has, which is for a simple Soul Blast, you can countercharge. But the only caveat to this is you can only do it once per turn. So the card states that when it pushes a unit with Ririmi in its card's name into Soul, if you haven't countercharged this turn, you Soul Blast when you countercharge. Which, with this deck, you're always counterblasting 3 turns to optimize your strongest strategy or your strongest attack or push turns. So 3 CB is a lot. So being able to put one face up and then being able to take 2 damage the next turn, hopefully not dying, you'll have that next 3 attack for your Persona turn. So you can do 33 columns, 38k columns, 36 for the Vanguard, etc., etc.
Talk about your OT turn.
Oof, we'll talk about that at the end. This is the second best card. This card honestly is way better than Broken Toys because it's a beat stick plus it's a simple effect, super simple effect.
It's a body plus setup.
So this is our beautiful Stealth Fiend Forktail. I played 4 of this card. Very expensive right now. It's like
very expensive card.
$30 and $25 a copy. But for good reasons. A very generic card that does something very unique. When you place the card down from anywhere actually, so it can be from drop, from hand, from soul, from anywhere. You can look at the top 7. Once you look at the top 7, you can do one of 2 things. You can either push a card with glitter, or you can push one card with stealth in the name into your soul. This is important because if you're missing unit pieces, you can put anything from herself, you can put the grade 3, you can put any of the 4 dolls, and it just makes deck thinning and being able to get your pieces a lot better. Especially in the early game, if I'm going second, I am calling this down to rush you. And behind the Vanguard, it gives me the best booster because my Vanguard short is going to be an additional plus 5k by herself, so it'll still hit for numbers like 26 instead of 21, or Persona Ride will be 36 instead of 31, which makes the deck so much better and more consistent, especially in the early game. This card is honestly one of my favorite tech options that came out from set 6. It's Heat Stamping Dragon. It's a very random card. I feel like this card only works really well for me because I'm what someone would say a filthy rush.
Filthy rusher.
Filthy rusher.
Dirty rusher.
A dirty rusher. This card is very niche, but it does serve its purpose in the early game and sometimes in the later game. All it does is when the Vanguard attacks, if my opponent has 2 or less rear guards, I can push this unit into soul, and my Vanguard gets an additional 10,000 power until the end of the battle. Until the end of the turn. Even better. This is really great for two particular reasons. I can swing at you with this in the early game, and if you hit a defensive, when I swing with my Vanguard, I can, if it doesn't matter if I'm on grade 2 or on grade 3, if you hit a defensive, I just bypass that defensive. Like, now you're going to either have to take it or you're going to guard it. Especially if I have a booster, typically I call the foretail behind the Vanguard. So my Vanguard in grade 2 ride will be swinging for 28, and if you hit a defensive at the time, you're either going to be 18 or 20k. So it just makes my push turns a lot better. And for my grade 3 turns, instead of making my column 21, I can make my column 31 a pseudo persona turn for just a simple card that goes into soul, which helps my deck even more because I need to soul charge to be able to do stuff. Because the more cards I have in soul, the more cards I can use the soul blast ability for both Ririmi and Rarami grade 2s. We're gonna move on to the PGs. So we're gonna be playing typical PGs, 3 of the regular. If you have 1 or less, so you have 2 or more cards in your hand, you have to discard 1. And the typical, for the current matchups of our beautiful Chrono Jet Overlord,
we have to play it.
We gotta play the Blitz. Alright, this deck runs 8 criticals. 8 criticals, in my opinion, are the best way to go because unfortunately right now there's just no use.
It's in a very aggressive meta. You need 8 crit.
Yeah, and especially when my opponent wants to passes me and the crit is shown, I already probably push him to 2 damage, and the crits just push him to 4 before they even go to grade 3, or sometimes they even go to grade 2. And then
he was making his opponents desperate. A lot of people tried to one to pass him.
A lot of people tried to one to pass me, and David knows I have a 50-50 chance.
Oh,
you better pass me.
50-50, let's be real, buddy. It's like a 90% chance of rain against you sometimes, bro.
Alright, and then, you know, the typical heals. All of my triggers are going to be the non-effect triggers for the crits and the heals. Sometimes I have to call them, and so I really don't need the crit that goes into soul. It's not very useful. I don't really benefit from the 2k difference because it wouldn't hit the numbers that I needed to hit.
It used to be good. It's just really not usable in the deck the way it is right now.
Yeah, just especially not in this deck. And then we run 3 fronts. Honestly, Dragon Empire's current issue is that it doesn't have enough shield. So, and also if I were to run draws in this deck, I would typically probably deck out faster. Or how I also dealt with a lot of issues was that I would draw the OT or draw a piece that I really needed, like if I had to hit a crit or something, the draw trigger would just get in the way. It would screw me more and more than I needed to screw me. So we're running fronts, especially the fronts coming clutch, especially on Persona right turn. If my opponent hit a defensive and I hit a front, my 33k columns are now going to be 43k and 48k, which makes the numbers so much better, especially when they're at 5 damage and they have to start guarding with 2 or more because they need to. And then obviously we're going to end it off with the over trigger. The Dragon Empire over trigger. This card in this deck is very disgusting.
It allows him to do an 8 attack combo.
Correct.
About the 8 attack combo.
So basically, this allows you to do 8 attacks. So how it works is you Persona Ride on top of your grade 3. So now your columns are going to be 33. You would activate the grade 3 order to get back your whatever dolls you have. If you have 2 extra dolls in your hand, it doesn't matter which ones. You just 2 extra dolls that were able to do the ability to push him to soul, or if you have the counterblast. A lot of the times I had the counterblast. Typically you need 4 counterblasts to do the full combo. Open counterblast to be more specific. How it works is you want to call a full board of 2 and 2. You want to have the grade 2 Rarami in front of the grade 1 Ririmi and the grade 2 Ririmi in front of the grade 1 Rarami.
That's how you get the grade 1 effects.
Correct.
They have to be in front of the opposite.
So the grade 1 will boost the grade 1 Rarami will boost the grade 2 Ririmi. The Ririmi and the Rarami will go into soul. That's 33k goes into soul. The ability of the grade 1 Rarami will activate and you're going to give something 5k. Typically you'll give it to the other column with the Rarami grade 2 and the Ririmi grade 1. So you can do the ability to countercharge. So you'll be swinging for 38, and then you don't want to countercharge at that point because you need to keep your 3 CB if you have your 3 CB open. So you'll keep it. Once you attack with that column, they'll go into soul. So now you swing with the Vanguard. That's going to be the 3rd attack. The 3rd attack with the Vanguard, typically you want to have it boosted by your Forktail. That's going to be 36, and then you would CB1 to superior call 1 of each grade 2 doll, and then you would Soul Blast to this situation. It could be either for the draw or to get rid of a pesky interceptor. Typically you want to get rid of the pesky interceptors first because that's free guard and you don't want your opponent to have free guard. That happened a lot to me with the Evas. They kept their interceptors and I just forced them into the soul so they couldn't intercept for free. So then on Vanguard, then you would CB2 because you Soul Blasted these. So their secondary ability is if they get Soul Blasted, it doesn't matter by who or by what. If you have the doll in the front row, you can CB1 for each doll and they will go behind the corresponding opposite doll. So if you Soul Blast the 2 while you have both of the grade 2 dolls, the Ririmi has to go behind the Rarami and the Rarami has to go behind the Ririmi. So once you do that, that's another 2 attack lines that you will have. If you check the OT, your Vanguard will restand. You want to give it all to the Vanguard. Your other 2 columns will attack 33 again and 38 again, unless you didn't if you didn't hit any of the triggers. And then you would push the last one to countercharge. That way you have one last CB for when your Vanguard attacks, because Tamayura's ability to do the pull out 2 dolls is not a once per turn ability. So on your 5th attack, on your 6th attack with the Vanguard, you counterblast the last CB and you superior call the last 2 grade 2 dolls that you have, so you can have 2 final attacks with 25,000 each. So that's the full 8 combo. 2 columns Vanguard. Vanguard swings, produces 2 more columns. You hit the OT, you restand the Vanguard, you hit with those 2 columns, then you attack the Vanguard, and then you CB1 to call the last 2 grade 2s because you're not going to be able to superior call the grade 1s behind them. And that's the full 8 attack combo. I was able to pull that off today against a Chrono Jet player. And the person was very surprised when I told him that Tamayura's effect only goes off when I have CB, and he didn't know that I had a counter charger waiting for him.
What was your only loss today?
So my only loss was unfortunately against the Youthberk. I think he was doing some shady stuff because he wasn't letting. He was cutting really weirdly, and he was also cutting my deck very weirdly. So I didn't think anything of it at the time. But I wish I would have picked up his deck and shuffled it a lot more, because the man just hit double trigger like it was like way too common. Other than that.
How many Jets did you go against today?
I went against 2 Jets, 2 Evas, 2 Thegreas, and 1 Youth. I won against every other deck except the 1 Youth player. Unfortunately, that's my only loss for the day, which honestly, for a rogue deck like this one, was a very good matchup with the Jets, because the Jets, they either would die before I got to my grade 3 Persona ride, because they would have already 5 damage and about 5 to 6 cards in hand, or against my Eva matchups, I would rush them to the point that they would only have 3 to 4 cards before they go into grade 3 ride, and then I would either Persona ride or be able to stall them enough to get rid of their whole hand. But yeah, this is my Tamayura deck profile. It's not very cookie cutter. It is very to my liking. If you want to try it out, the list is here. If not, see what you come up with.
He was not carried. He was not carried. His wins technically didn't matter, since most of our wins were 3-0 sweeps. But he was not carried, which was the important thing. Round 2, that's when your win mattered.
Bro, literally our round 2, they tell me, oh, Gianni Bo lost, and you were like, I was literally like, don't talk to me. I'm trying to win against this Ava player. But yeah, honestly, with how I was very thrown off today with the Thegrea players. Thegrea players were not something that I was expecting. Actually, a lot of people thought I was playing a lyrical deck with just the sleeves alone. But this is my deck profile with Tamayura. I'll be leaving it off to the lovely person over here.
Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. This was our first top 8 in a BUSHIROAD Springfest event. I've only participated in 2 Springfest events, so the fact that I was able to get a top 8, let alone with my friends, I was able to get a top 8 with my friends, means a lot to me, even though we didn't make it past top 8. But you know, we always will try again, especially when regionals comes around. I'm gonna try and go to as many regionals as I can. But yeah, guys, we're gonna leave it off. I hope you guys have a blessed day, blessed night, depending on whenever you're watching this.